Okay, great. And we are back. This live stream show is going to go over some of the news stories that have come out in the last week over the different types of bailouts the People's Bank of China and the Chinese banking system are doing to try to save small and medium-sized businesses in China. So there's been a lot of articles that have been coming out over the last week. I don't know if I'm going to talk about all of them. I'm going to try to keep this stream fairly short since a lot of people don't want me to spend 15 or 20 minutes answering free questions every single live stream show for the live chat Q&A. That's fine. I can answer them. If people have the same types of questions, I can just put those answers on audio podcasts or articles behind the paywall on my Patreon account. Anyways, out of the last 6 videos I've done, and I haven't even mentioned the coronavirus once. I'll mention it now because I honestly don't care. YouTube was probably going to demonetize this video anyway just because it's talking about China. I didn't even mention the coronavirus once on more than maybe one video out of the last 6, if that, and 4 out of the last 6 were demonetized anyway. So that was a situation where they ran the ads for maybe an hour or 2 or 3, and I checked and it said the ads were running, and then the ads were shut off. So whatever. At least I have a good amount of Patreon account contributors that are growing. Okay, so you want the content, we'll get the content out for now. So the latest article that just came out is China gives relief to shield trillions of yuan in bad debt. This is updating the one there on your screen. So we'll work our way back. China's financial regulators will allow the nation's lenders to delay recognizing bad loans from smaller businesses, reeling from the deadly coronavirus outbreak, giving temporary relief to trillions of yuan in bad debt. Qualified small and medium-sized businesses nationwide with principal or interest due between January 25th and June 30th of 2020 can apply for a delay. Wow, they're stretching this all the way out to the end of June. So for almost another 4 months, over 3 more months, can apply for a delay to the end of the second quarter, the China Banking and Insurance Regulatory said in a joint statement with the central bank on Sunday. In Hubei province, the center of the outbreak, the waiver applies to all companies, including large firms, according to the statement. Chinese banks are taking extraordinary steps to avoid recognizing bad loans, seeking to protect themselves and cash-strapped borrowers from the economic fallout of the epidemic. Regulators told lenders not to downgrade loans with missed payments or report delinquencies to the country's centralized credit scoring system before the end of June, according to the statement. The push by banks and regulators to ease the wave of debt going bad is part of a broader effort by President Xi's government to shore up the Chinese economy, which some forecasters predict may suffer a rare quarter-on-quarter contraction to start 2020. Gross domestic product may shrink by 2.5% in the first quarter. That would be optimistic. The Chinese PMI numbers that came out on Friday were abysmal. I think one of the worst ones ever reported. They were down enormously. I have a story on that. I think they went down to, let me see if I could pull up the story here correctly. Here we go. China reports catastrophic data. PMIs crashed to record low, confirming coronavirus collapse. The PMIs dropped, looks like, to 20. Let's see here. Oh, no, 29.6. 29.6, but they were above 50. According to the chart here from February 29th article. Okay, back to this article. Nomura Holdings economists said in a report on Saturday after the country's manufacturing sector reported record low activity in February. In addition to pumping billions of yuan into the banking system to make it easier for lenders to extend credit, authorities have cut interest rates, reduced taxes, and pledged to adopt more proactive fiscal policies. S&P Global estimated last month that a prolonged health emergency could cause China's non-performing loan ratio to more than triple to about 6.3%, amounting to an increase of 5.6 trillion yuan, which is 800 billion in bad debt. With the loosening bad loan recognition standards, the ratings agency expected quote-unquote questionable loans to peak at 11.5% of the GDP in the aftermath of the epidemic. I think this is being very optimistic. Bloomberg did stories in the last couple weeks, and they surveyed for one of the stories, they surveyed about 6,000 small and medium-sized Chinese businesses. Bloomberg China did. And 30% of those Chinese businesses would be out of cash in 3 months, another, 30% in 4 months or 5 months, and then by 6 months or more, the other 30% would be out. Only 10% of all the 6,000 small and medium-sized Chinese businesses surveyed said they had 6 months or more of cash on hand. So that was one. Also, the China Beige Book CEO Leland Miller just released a survey of his own, and he said, according to his survey, and they have a lot of analysts in mainland China right now, boots on the ground, that about a third of Chinese businesses are not running at all. So they have not restarted yet. About a third are running, but way below normal economic productivity level. So these are factories that are running way below normal output, and about a third are running at full capacity, according to his research. So the studies are all over the map for some of these surveys. So take some of these with a grain of salt. Remember, I reported in the last 10 days to 2 weeks, and Simone Gao did reported on this on one of her studies. She has really good YouTube videos. She's translating Chinese social media along with Jennifer, I think, Zhang on Twitter. Can't remember her exact last name. She has an enormous Twitter following now where she's translating from Mandarin to English and also posting videos from Chinese social media on Twitter. And they were reporting that Tsinghua University was saying that up to 80% of Chinese businesses have only 3 months of cash in a survey. So the surveys are all over the map, but there are a lot of Chinese businesses, small and medium-sized ones, which make up about 80% of the Chinese economy, that do not have a lot of cash, especially in cities like Wuhan, which is ground zero. From what I've heard in Wuhan from my friend who's trapped there that I've known for over a year, a lot of businesses in Wuhan are starting to restart a little bit. There is some restarting there, some factories, restaurants, shops, some. But it's dangerous. It's a balancing act because the government really needs tax revenues to help pay off their debt. And a lot of people in Wuhan have had no job, no income for over a month. So very, very bad. A lot of people in Wuhan have blown through their savings. And then also you have really, really, really bad stagflation. As bad as the stagflation was in mainland China with the African swine flu and the prices of fresh pork going up enormously, also chicken rising rapidly, some vegetables were rising quite a bit in 2019 with African swine flu. The stagflation for food prices has only gotten worse in Wuhan, according to my friend who is trapped there. He is reporting that the prices for fresh eggs and fresh pork, there is rationing for families for fresh pork. So they're only allowed to buy a certain amount of fresh pork each week. And the prices for eggs were going up 30% every couple days. That's the last I heard from a few days ago. So the price of eggs were still going up. And he said overall the price in just the last month or so, the price for a lot of food items are up at least between 30% to 200%. And some of these prices are going up every couple days. So that's how bad the stagflation is with the price controls, the rationing, some food problems that are developing. Jennifer Zhang covered this, I think that's her last name, covered this on Twitter, showing how the Chinese military might be confiscating some farms for extra rice production. Okay, let me get back to the article here. So I think the stuff that's still coming out of China is optimistic. I got in an argument with a hedge fund guy on Twitter. I think he has over 70,000 Twitter followers, this Hayek and Keynes, and he's telling me to show him accurate data from China proving my point. And I told him, how is China going to have accurate, honest data when there is no freedom of speech there? And if you say anything that conflicts anything the government says, you're risking going to prison or re-education camp and daily torture, brainwashing, and not coming out of the camp. So look at what happened to those doctors who were infected early on with coronavirus and were warning people. Look what happened to them. Look what happened to that poor woman, the middle-aged woman, I think, who her family, she lost a family member to, and she was crying on Chinese social media, and the government forced her to renounce it. She had to recant, and she had to sign some type of stupid paper saying that she was lying. Okay, so how can you get honest and accurate information and data out of mainland China when there is no freedom of speech? I'd like to hear that one from the geniuses, the armchair virologists on Wall Street. I'd really like to hear a good answer to that. The amount of bailouts that China is doing now are absolutely enormous. I have about 5 or 6 different articles if you want the details. There's even an article that came out today, and from Bloomberg News is called Everything China is Doing to Support Its Markets During the Outbreak. And there's a timeline here going back to, let's see here. Actually, it's further. Yeah, it's going back all the way to the February 1st of all the different interventions, all the different interest rate cuts, all the different bailouts, all the different crazy stuff with credit injections that the People's Bank of China, Chinese banking system, Chinese government is doing to try to prop up their stock market, their banking system, and prevent bad loans from going bad. So bad loans they're just pretending. I think at some point what the Chinese government is going to do is these businesses, and the Chinese government's giving the larger businesses like basically access to government credit lines and banking system credit lines. At some point those loans are probably going to be forgiven. So I think the European Union will probably do something similar. The US may do something similar, but they're going to announce like emergency credit lines for a lot of these larger firms, and they're going to say, oh, they're going to have to pay them back in 6 months or a year, and then people are just going to forget about them, and that's going to be another hidden backdoor bailout, covert bailout, or stimulus. Bloomberg ran a story February 24th talking about millions of Chinese firms face collapse if the banks don't act, and then interviewing some Chinese small business owners who can't pay back the bonds, their dollar bonds, can't pay their employees. I've talked about a couple of these stories briefly in the last week or two. There's another article that came out on February 25th about all the different Chinese economic data indicators, how bad the Chinese economy is. February 28th article, China makes bad loans disappear as virus pummels the banks. So Chinese banks taking extraordinary measures to avoid recognizing bad loans, seeking to shield themselves and cash-strap borrowers from the economic fallout of the coronavirus outbreak. Some of the measures, which include rolling over loans to companies at risk of missing payment deadlines and relaxing guidelines on how to categorize overdue debt, have the explicit approval of regulators in Beijing. Some lenders are also refraining from reporting delinquencies to the country's centralized credit scoring system and allowing borrowers to skip interest payments for as long as 6 months, according to people familiar with the matter who asked not to be named discussing internal decisions. So the Chinese bank, as I've covered now for well over a year, the Chinese economy, Chinese banking system, Kyle Bass has covered this, Emma Mollman has covered this, Denny McMahon has covered this, Tony Nash has covered this. I've interviewed a good amount of them on my YouTube channel. Hopefully I'll be able to get Kyle Bass on in a couple months. I've been speaking with him a little bit back and forth in Twitter. Anyway, the Chinese banking system had enormous amounts of problems way before the coronavirus outbreak. It's only making things worse, but this might be the excuse the Chinese government needed to do even more bailouts. And what's even weirder and kind of more perverse is that I just looked at the exchange rate for the Chinese yuan to the dollar, and it's actually below 7 again. So the Chinese yuan is actually strong against the dollar. I think that's probably because the dollar index dropped below 99. The last time I looked at it late last night, it was almost below 98. I didn't look at it today. But the Chinese yuan, it's 6.972 Chinese yuan to the dollar. So despite all these economic problems and bailouts and stuff that the Chinese economy is needing, the Chinese yuan is actually like strengthening. Isn't that how weird and dystopian and counterintuitive everything is now? Greg says China's shutting down their economy to attack America economically. It's an act of war. No, they're just preventing a lot of N95 masks. They're preventing all N95 masks from being shipped from China to the U.S. They've confiscated all of them. And if you were a good person and you paid to ship through charity a bunch of N95 masks to China, the Chinese government officials, the Chinese military people, and the CCP officials, the higher-ups, the local, provincial, and higher-ups, they took all the good masks. So they took them for themselves and their families, or they sold them for a profit. So if you were in the West and you paid to buy an N95 mask and you weren't trying to make a big profit and you just wanted to send them to China because you're philanthropic and you wanted to help the people in China, the people in China who needed those N95 masks the most did not get them. Lots of stories of charity fraud like that in China with the N95 masks. Winston and Matt have covered this. I think they even had friends who sent those masks to China and had them stolen. 3M is supposed to be manufacturing more of the N95 masks outside of China. I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that, though. There's still enormous shortages. They've been telling people for 2 months that they're going to have this handled. They're way far behind. Okay, so if you want to read more details of the bailouts, problems with the Chinese economy, they will be in the information and description section. I'm just going to keep this short. The video is going to be demonetized anyway. Thankfully, though, I have way over 300 Patreon account contributors now. Thank you so much. The growth that has been happening in the last month or two has been amazing. So it's allowing me just to do content, research, information, analysis, and financial education. And even if YouTube decides to demonetize every single one of my videos going forward, at least like I have some money coming in from somewhere else to pay my bills. Because look, I didn't even say coronavirus on any of the last 6 videos prior to tonight, and 4 out of the 6 were still demonetized anyway. Welcome to dystopia. Okay, well, that's ending this short little show. I told you guys I was going to keep it short. I have gotten some requests for some other things to do behind the Patreon account paywall. People want a valuation update on Sandstorm Gold. I did. If you are a Patreon account contributor, I wrote an article, very detailed one, October 2019, talking about the Sandstorm Gold valuation and what I expected it to be after the Fruta del Norte royalty was online generating cash flow, and after the Relief Canyon gold stream was online generating cash flow at a certain gold price. So my opinion on Sandstorm Gold's valuation has not changed since then, and it looks like the Relief Canyon gold stream should be online in April. So things are finally starting to roll. But I guess I could do an audio podcast update if people don't want to go and if Patreon account contributors don't want to go and reread the October 2019 article that's behind the paywall. That article, I remember writing it, I think it was like 9 pages. It's pretty extensive. Okay, well, that's it for tonight's show. Just want to do this update. All the articles, if you want to go more and more in depth, will be in the information and description section under the video.